so loud or a moment so intense that your brain just forcibly shuts out the rest of the world. Like, it just hyper focuses. Well, welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at some historical Islamic texts, specifically Sahih Bukhari Hadith number 2. And our mission is to explore these honestly remarkably physical descriptions of how divine revelation, which is known as Wahi, was actually received by Prophet Muhammad.
Right, yeah, because this specific text gives us a really rare window into the actual mechanics of that process. So a companion named Al-Harith ibn Hisham directly asks the Prophet how revelation comes to him. And the answer he gets completely shatters that, stereotype of a quiet, peaceful enlightenment.
It really does. I mean, the text breaks it down into two distinct methods. And the first one sounds genuinely terrifying. It basically describes the revelation arriving like the ringing of a bell.
Which the sources know was an incredibly painful and difficult experience for him.
Exactly. So, okay, let's unpack this. How do the sources actually describe this massive data download happening?
Well, when classical commentators like Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani analyzed this centuries later, they clarified that this likely wasn't a literal metallic bell. It was more like a continuous, overwhelming vibration, or this massive reverberating sound.
Like total sensory overload.
Precisely. If we think about how sensory overload works, an intense, inescapable auditory input basically forces the brain to abandon all other distractions. It demands absolute singular concentration. And once that intense ringing stopped, the message was perfectly burned into his memory.
Okay, wait, this brings up a huge question for me, though, because the text outlines a second method, right? Where the angel Jibril or Gabriel would appear in the ordinary form of a man and just speak directly to him.
Right, just a normal face-to-face conversation.
Yeah, and the result was the exact same perfect retention. So, I mean, if the painless conversational method worked flawlessly, why subject the prophet to a terrifying, painful auditory overload at all? That just seems completely unnecessary.
It is a crucial discrepancy, for sure. The scholarly consensus when looking at these texts is that the method depended heavily on the gravity of the message being delivered. So the conversational human form was generally used for routine guidance, or like historical accounts.
Oh, I see. So the bell method was for the heavier stuff.
Exactly. That overwhelming sensory vibration was reserved for the heaviest, most profound legal or spiritual verses. The physical toll wasn't just arbitrary. It was a direct byproduct of the sheer weight of what was being transmitted, which required a total shift in his state of consciousness.
And we actually see that physical toll documented vividly in the text. The narrator of this account, Aisha, describes witnessing him receiving revelation on a freezing cold day.
Right, a freezing day.
Yeah, freezing. Yet when the experience ended, his forehead was pouring sweat. So what does this all mean? Was this just extreme stress or, something else entirely?
Well, scholars like Imam al-Nawawi and Imam al-Qutubi synthesize this by pointing out that sweating profusely in freezing temperatures is evidence that he was being temporarily pulled out of a normal human baseline.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, their commentary suggests that God actually gave his heart special strength to bear the sheer weight of the revelation. It required an immense, unnatural exertion of internal strength, just pushing his physiology to its absolute limits.
I mean, think about a time when you had to process news that was emotionally devastating or grasp a concept so intellectually dense that your body actually felt physically exhausted afterward. The text is basically describing that physiological phenomenon, but on a massive supernatural scale.
Absolutely. And to add to that, scholar Ibn Kathir argued that this physical toll is cited as primary proof of the text's authenticity.
Right, really? How so?
Well, the argument is rooted in human psychology. No one would willingly or repeatedly subject their body to that level of agonizing stress just to invent a message. The involuntary physical reaction, like the sweating on a freezing day, was seen as validating the external origin of the words, like they weren't man-made.
Right, it's just the body reacting to something it simply couldn't contain under normal circumstances. We spent a lot of time analyzing the sheer force of that ringing bell.
Yeah, it's a really intense image.
It is. But let's pivot back to that second method where profound divine truths were delivered by someone looking like an everyday person. Because it leaves you with a really interesting thought to mull over.
Oh, definitely.
How often do you assume that your own world-changing moments or, massive realizations must arrive with loud, undeniable bells and whistles when they might actually appear as a totally ordinary conversation sitting right across from you?